Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this last webinar of the Pluralistic Media for Democracy. So this webinar is organized in the framework of the Pluralistic Media for Democracy project, from which we have two consortium partners. The first one is Journalism Fund Europe, for which I work, and we also have International Media Support, who are in charge of the capacity building program. So these two organizations have joined forces in order to prepare this project that is benefiting local, regional community media throughout Europe. So welcome to this session. This is the last one that we have, and hopefully it will be very useful for everyone in order to help you to have a stronger application to apply on the next deadline that is on the 12th of June. So before we start, I would like just to clarify that we will be recording this session in order to have a good repository of knowledge that can be useful for everyone also in the future. So this will be published online on the YouTube channel of Journalism Fund Europe. So you will find it there in case you want to watch it again. And we will record this session until the presentation of Journalism Fund. And then the questions and answers part will not be recorded because it will be just a privilege for the ones that are present. So in order to continue, I will share with you a presentation. And welcome to all the people that are joining still to the session. So this is the last webinar that we are organizing. In total, we have organized 10 webinars for the Pluralistic Media for Democracy, 2 in English and 8 in different European languages. And the agenda for today is basically we will go through an introduction of this session. Then we will also have international media support, in this case Irina Vinadava, who will be talking about important concepts and priorities of the project. And then we, as Journalism Fund, will also intervene in order to talk about the tips and tricks that will be useful for you in order to have a stronger application. And at the end, as I said, we will have a questions and answers section where you can ask your questions to us, and we will try to also reply to them. So as I said, this is the Pluralistic Media for Democracy project. In total, we aim to allocate 1.4 million euros to support financially local, regional, community, investigative journalism, and public interest news organizations that operate in news deserts or areas experiencing strained media pluralism. So in total, we are aiming to fund 40 media outlets, and we have granted already in the first call 19. So we are halfway of that goal that we have at the end of the project. And just so you know, this, once again, I repeated, it's a project that is organized, or that is being prepared by 2 organizations, Journalism Fund Europe and International Media Support, and it has the co-funding from the European Commission and also from the King Baudouin Foundation. So with that said, I will now give the floor to Irina, who will tell more about important concepts that are crucial that you understand them in order to improve your application, or if it's the first time that you are applying, in order that you consider these concepts in your project proposal. So Irina, I'll give the floor to you.
Thank you, Paula. We can move to the next slide. And good afternoon to everyone. It's good to see some familiar names and some new as well. So I hope that this session will really be helpful for your final stage of preparing the project applications. So there are several priorities set for Pluralistic Media for Democracy project and funding scheme. So just a reminder that this is a project-based funding, so we cannot support applications which imply financial support for your core operations. So it has to be project, and for this project, there are several important conditions. So the program targets small and medium-sized public interest media operating within news deserts. We will explain a bit more later about this news desert research, which was done last year, in the last 2 years, which can be reference for you when you are developing your project applications. But just to highlight here that the news desert means, it can mean a geographic or administrative area. So, for example, some place where there is no other public interest media outlet that would qualify as news desert, but it can also be a reference to a social community which is in a difficult or impossible position to get sufficient, verified, reliable, diverse information. So you can help the jury to understand why you consider yourself operating in news desert from this different perspective. So it can be geographical, it can be societal. So just keep it in mind when you reply to this section of the application form. But this is very important because this is how the relevance of your project will be evaluated by the jury members. Then the second priority is that we are seeking projects which benefit marginalized groups. I will explain more about marginalized groups, but it means that a project should be focusing on a certain segment of your audience. So not just general audience, even if you're a local or hyperlocal media outlet, within your general target audience, we ask you to focus the project on a more specific segment. Again, I will come back to this later, but that's very important that you keep it in mind that the focus should be focused on at least one minority or marginalized group. Then we aim with this program to foster innovation to increase sustainability and resilience of independent media. So by innovation, it's also explained in numerous materials of Pluralistic Media for Democracy. We mean something that will be new and innovative for your media organization. So that you don't have to invent a new Google or a new Facebook, but you might want to try either new technological solutions, either for content creation or content distribution, or something related to generating new revenue streams, or maybe to make your workflow and processes more efficient. The end goal of it is that as a result of this project, your media organization will be a bit more sustainable long term. So just to give an example, if your innovation might be in working more actively on social media platforms and you haven't done it before, you might want to introduce new formats or something, create new communities there. That can be part of it, but it's not enough. What should be added to this is how this will lead to you being more sustainable, meaning that, for example, you built a new community online and this community will be helping you to source information or will be providing you with some kind of support, financial, non-monetary. So just think of it as a next step to innovation. If we want to use an AI solution or AI generated tool, then what it will do for our longer term sustainability. So this is just two-phase kind of a two-phase approach to innovation. Then it's very important that the project has impact on target audiences and on the communities, and that you are able to explain in your application how this is going to happen, what kind of impact you are aiming for, or a change that you want to see happening within this community and target audiences, and how you will measure these changes. We, of course, understand that this change will not be overnight, and we might need more time than 9 months of the project implementation period to generate this change, but at least some markers that your project is making a difference for the target audiences and for the community should be part of the application. And that's something that the jury is also paying attention to. So beyond the activities, again, think of what will be the outcome and the impact of those activities on the target audiences. Then it's very important for us during the PM4D to create a safe environment for knowledge sharing. This will be a group of about 40 media organizations from dozens of countries in Europe, and there is of similar size, facing similar challenges and finding some very interesting solutions. So the goal here is to generate this knowledge exchange sharing best practices, discussing the biggest challenges, and maybe collectively finding some solutions. And finally, we are upholding diversity, equity, and inclusion values throughout the whole program, and therefore there will be a question about this in the application form of how your media organization is addressing these values and upholding these values on your end as an organization and also vis-a-vis the community. Next slide. So some of the core concepts, again, to reinforce that we are targeting public interest journalism media. And by that, we understand that those are editorially independent, fact-based journalistic organizations that inform public about relevant issues in different ways. So in the nutshell, it doesn't have to be news reporting. It can be any other type of journalism that you imagine, but that is not biased, that is fully independent, and that is serving public interest. So the call is open for niche media, the thematic topical media as well. However, it's very important that it's clear for the jury when they look at your websites, assess the journalism you produce, that it's not looking just as entertainment. So, for example, it can be a media that is focusing on some cultural topics, but again, it has to be producing the journalistic products on a regular basis, and they have to have this added value, addressing some of the problems that the target group of this media is facing. Then another important notion is about local and community media. So again, it's not only geographical, being local or hyperlocal, it's really ensuring that the reporting is done within and with the help of the communities that it is addressing. So you can be based in the capital, you can have a national coverage, but this project would need to be focused on developing the journalism related to specific community and being grassroots and local in this sense. And again, it has to add to pluralistic landscape of information in this specific area or in this specific societal group. So these are two important notions when, again, what is understood as public interest journalism and what is understood as local and community media. Paul, if we could switch to the next slide. Thank you. So one more core concept has been already mentioned before. It's that pluralistic media for democracy is also focusing on underserved audiences. So it correlates with the notion of news deserts. But in this case, we also ask you, as I said, to focus your project on at least one marginalized group. There is a definition that you can read for what is understood as marginalized group. Again, it's up to you how you define it. So, and it has to be clearly defined and described, including in terms of the numbers and demographic characteristics of this marginalized group, and most importantly, why, in your view, this group is deprived or underserved with reliable public interest content and information, and how this project then will contribute to fixing this problem. So, for example, you might want to focus your project on a certain age group, maybe increasing your reach to older or younger audiences. So whoever is in your general audience segment is underserved, could be this one group, or you can focus the project entirely on some other marginalized communities and groups which are not reached enough by media, such as it can be migrants, it can be people with disabilities, or anybody else that your media considers as important group which is not currently underserved and who you want to serve better. So again, this will be up to you to describe it clearly and precisely, providing and supporting your description with some numbers that you know. or some questions that you would like to find answers to in the application form. Please pay attention to that because, again, as Paula will proceed from now on, the jury does evaluate the projects on this criteria, among others, and that's very important for pluralistic media for democracy. Paula, back to you.
Thank you, Irina. So we will continue, and now we will jump to the part of Journalism Fund and the tips and tricks that we have for you in order to have a stronger application in the last and next round of the Pluralistic Media for Democracy grant program. So one of the weaknesses that we have detected, but not we, Journalism Fund, but I can say the jury has detected, is that there was a lack of contextualization and explanation of the news desert, of those media outlets where they are operating, and so on. And this is something that we recommend you to improve and to be clear from the very beginning. There is a part on the application form where you can explain this very briefly, but it's important that you give the main notions and the main information about this news desert where your media outlet is located, or the news desert that your media outlet aims to target. And for this, we would like to share with you this report that is a product of the previous project that we had, also with IMS, with EFJ, and with the Center for Media Pluralism and Media Freedom. And actually, they were the ones in charge of the research part, and they have prepared this report last year in February. It was published, where you can see specificities about each country and regions. So maybe this can be useful for you in order to give more context to your project and to make the jury understand why it's important that we fund the project that you have in mind. So this is a tool that can be very useful for you. So we will share it with you on the chat. I don't know if Irina can help me to share the link, please, of this research project report. Then another weakness that we saw, but this in this case Journalism Fund, because we do the screening of all the applications, all the projects. So first is the project coordinators at Journalism Fund who will check your application, and we will be sure that all the documents are in order and like the eligibility criteria is met. So in this case is the due diligence. This means that first, something we ask you even before you book a pre-application meeting sometimes, is that you check the eligibility criteria. Unfortunately, this grant program is not open for everyone. It has some specifications. Sorry. And then it's open for those legal entities with a registered seat in one of the EU 27 countries. Also, other countries that can apply are Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein, Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Serbia. So these are the eligible countries. So we kindly ask you to meet this criteria before applying, or if you want to send us an email to be sure about your status and so on, that's possible. But one of the main criteria is this, the eligible countries. Then also we ask you to verify before you apply that your legal entity has a turnover of less than 1.5 million euros, and also that your legal entity is not part of a group of consortium that has a consolidated turnover of more than 3 million euros. We know that in most of the cases this applies, and we know that we are aiming for those small local media outlets who don't have this amount of financial turnovers. But anyhow, we ask you to be sure before applying. Then we, as Irina mentioned, we want you to have a project that will benefit a local a community, a marginalized group. And this is only on your hands to really explain it very well, because you are the one who knows more about this news desert that you aim to benefit, and this marginalized group that you aim to benefit. Then the deadlines are very important. The first deadline it was on the 13th of February. So for this deadline, we have granted 19 projects and we had received 93 applications on time. And for the second deadline, well, the date has been set on the 12th of June. So this means that it's next week on Thursday, and it's at 1 p.m. Brussels time. So that's also important because for the previous deadline, we have received applications, but after 1 p.m. Brussels time. So for the second deadline, we will also apply these rules. So after 1 p.m., your application becomes ineligible and we won't send it to the jury and we won't process it. So that's important to note as well. And then important to know that, as I said, we have in total 1.4 million euros available to distribute, and we have spent 600,000 euros in the first call in the 19 projects, but in this second call, we have 800,000 euros available. So this is the amount that we have available, but of course, be realistic on the budgets that you prepare. I will explain that later as well. As part of the due diligence, we also ask you to verify that you are sending us these important mandatory documents. First of all, the full articles of incorporation of your media. They can be in the original language, any of the languages that you have in your country, no problem. We also use tools to translate it. But if you have a copy in English, that's also helpful for us, so that's also possible. Then we also ask you to upload the recent annual financial statement of your organization. This is also mandatory, and the full list of members of the board. Then, as a plus, if you have this information, in case you belong to a consortium, also the list of the companies, organizations, or natural persons holding capital or shares in the legal entity, if this applies to your organization. Then, as a third tip that we can share with you, is that we will have some priority countries. As I said, these are the 19 media outlets that were granted in the first round. You can see a variety of countries from the EU 27 countries. And unfortunately, we haven't granted the Balkan countries, for example, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Albania, Serbia. So these will be priority countries for the second round of applications. So this means that we will give a bit more focus to these countries, and also the countries that are mentioned here, like Bulgaria, Greece, Croatia, Cyprus, Malta, Lithuania, Estonia, and Slovakia. But something important to highlight here is that the jury will not only focus on this geographically or this geographic priority, but they will also check the quality of the projects. Because if the project is not good, of course, the jury won't grant it. So it's important that the quality of your application is also good, it's also high, and it has been improved if you have applied in the previous round. So that's very important. But here you have the list of the countries that we already granted in the previous round, and then that can give you an idea of which countries we would like to focus in the next one. Then another weakness that we have seen and the jury has detected in the previous round is that sometimes the objectives of the project and the activities were not that clear. First of all, as you know, and as it's stated in the grant rules, the maximum project duration is 9 months. So this is the maximum amount. There is no extension possible for the projects. So this is very strict. But also, it's important that in your timeline or in the timing that you have to explain in the proposal, you also show how the activities for the first months are very well defined, because sometimes we have noticed that in some projects that we have granted, the first 2 months is like they are still lost in the idea that they presented, so they don't know how to start. So that could help your project to be improved. You have to think of this at the moment of preparing the application. So try to anticipate these kind of things, and we ask you to do that in order to avoid the requests for extensions and to avoid delays in the implementation of the project. So that's important that you do it, and also the jury will appreciate it, because for them will be also clear what are the next steps that you will take in the project. Then another weakness that we have detected is that the marginalized audiences are not central in the objectives and activities. Sometimes they mention one marginalized audience, but then in the activities and the objectives, it's not really reflected or mirrored. So that's something that you can improve, and the jury will notice it if you do it. So that's something that can be helpful also for you. Then, as it's also explained on our website and on the grant rules, we have 4 grant criteria, and the jury actually evaluates all the proposals based on these criteria. The first one, that is one that has like the maximum score. One of the maximum scores is the relevance. And here is where you have to talk about the contextualization of the news deserts of your media outlet. So the relevance is very important, and also the explanation of the marginalized group that you are aiming to target. That's very important for the jury, and that's why this part has a score of 35 points. Then another important part, as I said, is the quality of content and activities. So this is also important for the jury in order to see whether your main activities or what are the specific activities that you will be implementing throughout the project, so they can see, okay, after the project they will manage to improve this and this for their own media outlet. So that also has a score of 35 points. So these 2 sections are, we will say, the most important. But also the project management, how you explain the way of that your staff will deal with the project, how many people will be involved, the experience of these people, that's also important for the jury, and this has a score of 15 points. And last but not least is the innovation and sustainability. We have seen that in many cases this was very crucial at the moment of deciding or giving the grant or not to a media outlet. So we also ask you to think of that innovative aspect of your project, but also the sustainable aspect of your project, the post grant plans of the project. That's important for the jury, because otherwise it just it becomes a one-time project, and that's something that the jury wants to avoid. That you will implement it, and then after the implementation, like nothing else happens. So the jury would like to see what will happen after the grant is finished. And as it's also explained on the website, the overall threshold is 70 points. So all the proposals that don't pass this score, they won't be discussed in the jury meeting. We will provide you with feedback, but they won't be really discussed in the jury meeting. So it's important that you reach this minimum score of 70 points in total in order to have your application discussed in the jury meeting. Then the jury meets once per round, and in this case they will be meeting on the 1st of August for the round that has a deadline next week on the 12th of June. So on the 1st of August the jury will decide which projects they will grant. And the jury is composed by 4 experienced European personalities, 2 women, 2 men, so it's also balance in gender. And they are experts in the field of local journalism and media business. They are anonymous and independent, and we do this in order to ensure their job and their transparency as well. And as I said, they meet after the application deadline. Normally this takes 1 month, 2 months, sometimes after the deadline, because it takes time for them as well to review and to process all these applications. And once again, they use this scoring system that I just shared with you, and this is the way we evaluate the proposals. Then I would like also to share with you more or less the type of positive and negative comments that the jury has and has had about some previous applications. I tried to delete the information of the specific media they were referring to, but I just wanted to point out the type of comments that they have when they don't like a proposal or when they like a proposal. So here, for example, for the section of relevance, here you can see two negative comments. And this is what I was saying when I tell you that the objectives and the activities have to be clear, because here the jury is saying, for example, the description of the marginalized community is vague and the focus is not clear. So this is where you can use the research report of the Local Media for Democracy project, and it can help you to give a better information and contextualization of the marginalized community that you want to target. Or you can use other sources that maybe you have at your hand, more local information about them. Then another negative comment here is that, for example, the jury is asking to this project to perhaps improve this wide accessibility to content for the marginalized group that the media is aiming to target. So in that way, maybe the project will align closely with the objectives of the grant program. So that's also another comment that the jury had, a negative one, but here they also give a bit the solution to the problem. And then a positive comment of the jury, this was for one of the projects that they really like, is that they saw that in the relevance part, they really address the media pluralism challenges in that region. They also saw how in a region where there was political control of the media, this project was trying to balance and to like face this kind of problematic. And also through the activities they mentioned here, I didn't want to really write the activities, but through the specific activities that this media outlet mentioned, they saw that there was, or it was making sense to target this marginalized group. So that's also another tip, that the activities, they really have to be mirrored or they have to mirror the benefits that you will give to this marginalized group. Then the second section is the quality of content and activities. As I said, this is part of the scoring system of the jury. So once again, the jury saw that the activities of the project were too generally described, and also the specifications of the plan were not explained in the proposal, and also that the project implementation of a project was not structured in detail. So that's something that you can do in your own project. And also they saw that there was no internal documentation or like something published on the website of this media that was ensuring independence and impartiality. So that's also a remark of one of the jury members. But then on the positive side, we can see that, for example, the jury for another project, they said that this project identifies a gap in media representation for, and then I don't put the name. And they also saw how this project was aiming to bridge generational and cultural divides through, and then the activities were mentioned, and I didn't want to add them here. And also they saw that these proposed activities aligned well with the needs of this marginalized group. So that's another tip that I can share with you. And then for the project management section of the evaluation system, here, for example, for the jury was not clear the timeline of the project. The media maybe didn't specify the months, the activities per month that they were going to do, how long, and also here, once again, the budget is important. It doesn't have to be very pricey. It has to match with the type of activities and project that you are aiming to implement. So for the jury was a bit expensive. And then also the project implementation phase has to be maybe structured more in detail. And that was another remark from the jury. And then a good remark or a positive remark of another project was like the calculations were like suitable for the project scope, and the timeline was stated clear with deliverables. So that can be also helpful for you to explain it with detail, but specifically to explain what are the specific costs that you want to cover with the grant. And at the end, we have also the innovation and sustainability part. As I said, this was this maybe it's not scoring too many points, but it's crucial because those 15 points can make a difference in the total score. So on the one hand, for the negative comments, they didn't see really innovation of one project. They also like saw that it was just a expansion of the normal activities of the media. So this is something you have to explain to the jury, because the jury maybe doesn't know your media outlet, they don't know your country, but it's up to you that they have a better notion of what are the needs, what are the innovations that you would like to implement for your media. And then here, for example, it was an innovative project, but they didn't see the sustainability aspect very clearly. So that's something that you have to balance, that the innovation and sustainability are clearly explained. And then here we see a positive comment. In this case, it was for a project that was aiming to benefit a young audience group. So here they give more specifications about the project, and also how they were trying to explain the sustainability aspects, and how this project was showing this long-term capacity, and how the media was also explaining the next steps after the grant. So this is a positive aspect that the jury saw. Then, as I said, it's important to have a good budget. The budget has to be reasonable. The budget has to be also based on the activities and objectives of your project. And one of the parts where we have detected some issues is on the personnel cost calculation. Uh, because here it's an example of how you have to calculate this. It's not like your staff will receive a bonus or extra money for the project. No, this has to be really calculated based on the daily costs per employee, and this can be seen on the pay slips, this can be seen on the contracts that you have signed with your employees, and this has to be a real price. So it's not a bonus that you pay to your employees, but it's part of the daily cost of your employees, and then you have to specify how many days they will dedicate to the project. Here is an example. You also have it on the budget template that it's on the application form, and you have to calculate it with this formula. Then the deadlines, as I said, the first deadline was in February and it's closed, and we have granted 19 media outlets. And for the second and last deadline, we have set the 12th of June as the date. And as I said, it's at 1 p.m. Brussels time. So that's important that you notice it. Please try to submit your application before this date, so then you are sure that your project will be reviewed by us, and then we can perhaps ask you if there is something missing, but then we will have enough time to do it. And just to finalize, we also offer pre-application meetings. Normally in these meetings, we can accept to check budgets, proposals. Of course, this doesn't guarantee you that you will get the grant, but perhaps our comments can help you to improve the application. So for example, if I see that there is a budget of 80,000 euros, I can tell you in that pre-application meeting that that's a high budget, and perhaps the jury won't won't fund it. So this kind of feedback we can provide you in these pre-application meetings. Also, if you have other questions regarding your project, the activities, and well, other issues related to the project idea that you have, we can help you and assist you in these pre-application meetings. And we also, as I said at the beginning, have organized 10 webinars, 8 in different languages like Spanish, French, Serbo-Croatian, German, Bulgarian, Greek, and I don't know if I'm forgetting one more, but we have organized 8 different language webinars about this grant program. You can scan this QR code and then you can access to those. And we hope that with this information, you can really have all the tips and tricks that you need in order to get the grant. We know the importance of this kind of funding for your media. So we really hope that we can see your application in the next round of the Pluralistic Media for Democracy Grant Program. So I would like to close the session here. I will close the recording. So thank you for those that are watching on YouTube, and for those that will stay here on Zoom, we will answer your questions in case you have some doubts and yeah, other questions regarding the grant program. So thank you for connecting, thank you for being here, and success with the application.